for families and so on and so forth. And somewhere around 11 p.m., 11:30, midnight or quarter after midnight, in most of the cases, we say it's enough, it's been a long day, it's time for a rest. In contrary, from the 7 a.m., the battery level is completely different, which means all the battery dried. Which means you go to sleep. Usually it doesn't take even 2 minutes until you black out, which means the brain waves change to somewhere around 10.7 pulses per second or 10.7 hertz when you black out and you exit the body. Once when you exit the body, that's something where the major things are happening. So which means in one single night, let's assume it's 8 hours of sleep, you can do this just few times, or sometimes it's 40 times that we are waking up and falling asleep once again in one single night. So to understand what is happening, we need to understand that the astral plane is just the border of almost huge infinite ocean of energy and existence. Which means every time when the astral body departs, it has a natural characteristics to collect energy. Vital energy, chi, ki, prana, whatever you call it, or whatever suits your terminology, and it's collecting into the auric field. Which means every time when it departs from the astral dimension and goes back, how should I put it, into the physical body, it departs most of the energy, believe it or not, to the etherical body, not to the physical one. Because it's more than 70% is delivered to the etherical body than the physical one. From the etherical body, as we mentioned, it has 72,000 nadis, or 72,000 energetic channels. This collected energy is translated into the physical body through literally those energetic endings and through the nervous system, which means through the nervous system is delivered further and then to the water is delivered to the rest of the physical body. In other words, the brain and the spinal cord float in sea, the so-called cerebrospinal fluid between the skull and the spine. So for example, in the nerve cells there are 70 to 80% of water. The dry material is about 8% protein and 20% lipid, which means the energy goes first here, and then as this vast network of wirings are touching the network of the nervous system, it's translated in a form of bioelectrical impulses, and it's literally charging the body. So which means every time when you wake up in the middle of the night and you switch side, on you turn on the other side, that means that one arrival just finished and one departure is just going to follow. It requires a few longer astral excursions to collect the necessary energy, or more than 50 short excursions where the astral body will collect the energy. And once, when that numbering is complete, you have the same energy for the next day, and you feel, and your auric field is strong, powerful, and shiny. And you are ready for the circumstances and challenges of the next day. The auric field, which is taken from certain technologies which are existing out there, if you take a Killian camera in the morning, you will see that the size of the auric field is a lot bigger. The shine is a lot bigger. And also when you take a photograph, let's say 7 p.m. or 10 p.m., you will see that the Killian photograph is showing a lot smaller aura. The colors are not so shiny anymore, which means this field, this aura is not physical, it's etherical in nature. It's the aura of the etheric body, and it's like a battery which is getting drained or is charging every time. There are so many technologies out there. Many are completely useless, but there are some which are really, really good. Nevertheless, gaining awareness of the astral presence is an experience that people call dream. Because once when we enter the dream, there's something very interesting. The moment you black out, you exit. There are two ways to exit. If you exit, let's say, with closed eyes, because with time and experience, you get very good at this, and you start to see other people's astral bodies. But if you come closer to their faces, you will see that some of the astral bodies have closed eyes, which means they're completely unaware of their presence into the astral dimension. There's almost infinite number of the dreaming programs, all kind of stuff, but they all have the same they have one anomaly which can be traced. And this trace can trigger a reality check and you become aware that you're dreaming. For the consciousness which is completely numb, it can dream that it's swimming in a swimming pool, and the bottom of the swimming pool you start to see buildings in the New York City, and it still does not ring anything unusual. That's where the consciousness is very asleep. But for the consciousness which is starting to become aware, you start to see that there's something wrong with this. And for example, in this case, you are dreaming that a huge water is coming, but everyone is continuing to have their lunch. Which means this guy is screaming, guys, water, water. No one is responding, because it's a hologram. And there is a way out of the hologram. The way out of the hologram is to recognize that you dream. Once when you recognize that you dream, you have 6 to 7 seconds to take the situation in your advantage. These 6 to 7 seconds can literally take you to the fully conscious presence into the astral dimension. One of the techniques is to see your own hands inside the dream. Why hands? Because inside the dream, most of the time, you are focused outwards, but you are never focused inwards. When you see your own hands, even in the physical body, that draws awareness towards you. And once when you see this in the dream, you will take awareness to you and you will become aware that you're dreaming. The same happens when you see your own reflection in the mirror inside the dream, and also in a water reflection in the dream. For example, also with flying and so on and so forth. So it creates something which is known as controlled out of the body experience, or astral travel. So, in other words, I will just put one small example and I will move to the other topics. For example, you had fallen asleep 11 p.m. Very quickly you departed the body. But as you have departed the body, you have departed with the close, let's say, eyes. Let's say you are 200, 300 meters away from your physical body. And you're experiencing that something is chasing you. And you're running, and you come to a point where you cannot run anymore. And in that moment, usually, the whole stuff looks like it's paralyzed, and that's where you wake up with a shock. The only thing that you need to do is just step back and take a look at your fear, at your own things which is chasing you, if you like. The moment you look at this thing and you focus on mental power, it will start completely to vanish, to evaporate. And believe it or not, when you're with closed eyes, you can see this hologram, you cannot see the trees, you cannot see the roads, the people, the buildings, nothing. But once when you become aware of your dream, wake up, you can see the physical environment. So this is just one tip. Alright. Another thing which is important to mention before we move on. Sometimes people report an experience known as sleeping paralysis, which means they wake up in the middle of the night, they cannot move. There is extreme high-pitched sound in their ears, or a high buzzing sound, if you like, which is generated by the lambda brainwaves, which is more than 100 pulses per second of frequency, which means there is a huge waves of energy which is happening, and you experience that something very weird is going on. This is the Kundalini force that can take you out of the body, fully conscious, and take adventure, what people describe as a near-death experience, if you like. Nevertheless, understanding of the brain is crucial, how the brain works, and also what it does, and so on and so forth. Unfortunately, we don't have the time to go into more details, but on the website you can see actually more. Other thing which is also important to mention is that this same buzzing sound is experienced by people that are experiencing the so-called abductions, if you like. Usually hear this before things actually go into a white flash, if you like, and everything goes out of the memory. We have tracked this thing for many years. As soon as the infrared technology and the night vision technology started to come to the front, we started to realize that when those orbs, the lack of the better technology, they project like lights towards the house, and sometimes even the physical body is taken, if you like, and returned back. This guy, I spoke with this guy a few years ago. His name is Daniel Sherman. He was a sergeant, and actually he worked for NSA. His skills and expertise are very similar to mine. In other words, he was working on something which is called Project Preserve Destiny. and he was trained to do certain stuff for the military, if you like. Nevertheless, this is the book, Above Black, well worth it to check it out. We are talking something about known as intuitive communication. It stands for the ability to communicate with extraterrestrials through intuitive manipulation of the consciousness. So far, only a small handful of people are able to utilize this. Children are being born, but they cannot use this ability properly. Only after a certain age, this ability becomes fully active, but without proper training, this becomes completely useless with time. The military has amplifying devices which can amplify the brain waves and so many other stuff which they're using in different purposes. And I can tell you they're very good. So this is one of the things that actually was of interest to me. He shared that his contacts actually provide the information that this Project Preserve Destiny, if you like, is a project of the military to establish a contact and to maintain that contact. And it says that the Earth and its in geological infancy and that we should expect much change very soon. But he was also told that similar abilities will be needed in the future when all electromagnetic communications will be rendered useless. It's a really, really heavy information. There's his certificate that he worked for NSA basis, and I can tell you this guy is for real. So, many occasions there are certain objects which are put into the bodies. Those objects are put in many places, like part of the spine, bones, and so on and so forth, and they're very tiny. They're usually encompassed or engulfed by a small gray substance, if you like, which is providing a nerve stimulation and does not produce infection of the tissue. In other words, people started to get out of the doctors started to get those objects out of the people that are claiming that they've been taken. And many of those implants, if you like, or objects are not made by any known material in the periodic table. The implants broadcast on a spread spectrum. The frequencies are all based on a hydrogen hyperfine transition line, the most fundamental wavelength of the universe. Which means the shadow government, whatever you want to call it, has a technology to trace every single person that's been taken, has implant, or there is a connection with the ETs, if you like. They can block it. The most difficult ones to get rid of, if you like, are the ones which are taken into the head or put into the head through the nasal opening, if you like, through the ones which are not so nice to a human race. So, whatever this thing actually is, literally is producing something very, very powerful. And he recalls that in those transmissions that he was actually able to pick up for the military, the disturbing sentences like potential for recall, horizontal pain level, nerve response, body normalization, and other more obscure things that he was mentioning are also present. So which means it gives you the coordinate system where the abduction takes place, the time, the date, and the number, which means it's completely a program which they hide from us. Sometimes there is a white flash and then it's all gone. Sometimes the abductions take place from generation to generations to sons and daughters, and they experience the same stuff. When they combined on the X-ray, the objects is on the same place. And it's difficult to exit. Most of the time, people report that they have glimpses of memory, which are again revived through hypnosis therapy, and similar stuff that they're seeing that something is going on from the space, which is really happening during the other stuff, if you like.